So somebody says, well, I don't have 30 minutes to make a video. But if I offered you 12,000 hours back, would you make that trade?
And I think that's where people make their mistake, because most people come in as the consumer. They're unconscious to what's actually happening to them.
People are always most likely looking at today's cost versus tomorrow's value.
Yep.
If you look at today's cost, it's going to be very hard to see tomorrow's value.
And he's telling you, I started researching a year ago, or I started YouTube 2 years ago. He's telling you what he's doing, right? This is a play for anybody that is willing to really commit to it. All right, welcome back for another episode of Wealthy Creator. It's a pleasure today. I got a good friend, I guess, and a good, I look at this guy, really, he is one of the coolest and laid back dudes I've worked with in terms of like content creators and professionals. And so I really admire his style. I really admire what he's doing with his platform. Just to not hold you up any longer, let me introduce Levi. What's up, man?
What's up, Justin? How are you?
I'm all good, man. Can't complain. It's good. I'm happy to have you here, man. Like, we've been kind of going, working together for what, 3 months now, 4 months?
Maybe 4 or 5, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's been a little while now, and I'm happy to finally get you here, and you taking out your time. I want to thank you for taking this time and really sitting and talk with me today.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'm just going, I'm gonna jump straight into this thing, man. I think people that are gonna watch this podcast and listen to this. This is about content creation. This is the Wealthy Creator podcast, and so we really want to talk about, that side of your business. And so, just to kick it off straightforward, how beneficial has it been since you first started your content creation and posting on this process?
Well, I mean, the content creation probably accounts for 98% of our business, so wow. It's pretty dramatic. So I would say it's been very important.
Okay. All right. Tell me more about like how you got started with the process.
Yeah. So I got my business partner back here behind the scenes. So gracious enough, he allows me to have the spotlight most of the time, which is very nice. But, we started this, back in December of 2020. And it was something that I had a previous business, financial services. I worked with all the teachers on retirement planning at schools. And so I visited teachers. My goal was like to have 3 to 5 appointments every single day. But I did that all through email marketing. We'd email market and go to meet with teachers. And I worked Monday through Friday, weekends off. I had the teacher schedule, but like 5 times the teacher's income. So it was really cool, because I traveled the world and was just having a good time. And then 2020 happened and the world shuts down, travel shuts down, school shut down. And so I found myself sitting there going, okay, what's the next move? Because we had no idea, would schools ever open up again? Would the world ever be the same? What was going to happen? I wasn't going to get a job because there was also 30 million layoffs at that time. So over the summer, I just had to sit there and reevaluate and ask myself some different questions, which is, how do I start over without starting over? First of all, I was 41 years old at that time, and I'd been in sales for 20 plus years. And I was really kind of burnt out on prospecting because, sales is a never ending prospecting game if you really want to be good at sales. And so I was just sitting there trying to figure out new ways to generate business and what business was I going to move into. Now, I've got a lot of good friends in real estate agents, but I also saw how hard they worked in the beginning, because that all starts with lead generation. It all starts with prospecting. It starts with, shaking hands and kissing babies. But also during 2020, that was something that was, there weren't networking events going on. Like everyone's kind of hanging out, but I started to watch real estate grow over the summer of 2020. And I got some really good friends saying, hey, now's the time to get into real estate. But I was scared to death, really, of starting over and trying to prospect my way into success, and so I was thinking, okay, there has to be a different way. Now, at the same time, if you're at my age range, which is that 40-year-old age range or above, we have this love-hate relationship with social media. So, we didn't grow up with it. It wasn't there in high school. Yeah. It wasn't there really even in college. It came around probably late 20s whenever, Facebook, MySpace came out. Actually, I remember, I was actually in Iraq with the military in 2005, I think, when MySpace came out. Yep. And we were talking about it. Like we could barely log online, take 10 hours or 10 minutes for just to get a connection. And then we're like, oh, we got to check the MySpace. And so I was really kind of antisocial media, I should say, throughout, my adult life, because I think, again, for a lot of people at my age, we look at it came late in the game. And we thought it was people, bragging, posting their lunch, silly cat videos. We looked at it from the consumer side, and so we thought there's not much use to it. But you see the 20 and the 30-year-olds start to make money, and you're going, okay, well, maybe there's something to this now. So over the summer of 2020, that's where I started to think about, if I'm going to move into real estate, could I actually generate business a different way? And plus, could I attract business? This word attraction was just stuck in my mind. Like, I didn't know, is that even possible to build out some sort of marketing or campaign where people just come to you ready to go? Because I was so used to just outbound prospecting, whether it was cold calling, or I've done door knocking, I've chased down people, I've worked in retail stores where people came in with no intentions to buy something, and you have to, pursue them and go after them. So all these different scenarios that I just really didn't want to do again. So that's where I thought, okay, well, it is probably going to be social media. But I didn't want to get caught up in the issue of going on 5 different platforms, because I think that's a big mistake when people get started, is they take the advice of somebody else, and somebody will tell them, okay, now you're a real estate agent, now you're a financial advisor, now you're a flipper. It doesn't matter what you are, you need to be everywhere. That's what they'll tell people in the beginning. And so they say, okay, now you've got to open up Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And I think in that scenario, you ended up spending or giving 20% of your effort across 5 different platforms. So I figured that would be a trap I didn't want to get into. So I thought, I want to pick one platform. If I'm going to go down the social media route, I don't want to just be everywhere at first. I want to focus on one platform and see if I can generate business from that. And if I can become successful from there, then it would make sense to maybe branch out later on. So did a lot of research and tried to figure out what was that platform, because I was starting from scratch. And I never had a presence. I had like 300 Instagram followers, which were like friends and family. I had a couple hundred people on Facebook, which was all my high school buddies. Didn't even have TikTok. I had a YouTube channel before, but I was kind of like everybody else. I dabbled and made some YouTube videos early on, but had no clue what I was doing, never studied the platform, never tried to understand it. And so I, just like everybody else, made a few videos, didn't see much results, and so I stopped making videos, right? So, I just started looking at that. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok were the first platforms I looked into, because that's what everybody was telling me to do. TikTok, especially in 2020, because every real estate agent was waking up with like 10,000 followers, right? And they're like, sweet. But I didn't really see people turning over a lot of business from that. So YouTube was really the last choice. But what I started to understand was that YouTube was a search engine, not a social media platform. And so that started to fit more with my personality, because I also realized, okay, I really kind of had this concern about being that guy, that 40-year-old also saying, oh, by the way, I'm a real estate agent now. Make sure you call me for all your buying and selling needs. Yeah. Like that scared me to death. Like, I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to, everybody to kind of look at me as starting over again. I kind of wanted to do this secret agent style, but that's not really how you generate business, is secret agent style. So I was really torn on that. But as I started to dig in more into YouTube and study the platform, and that's where I really start to dig in. And I have this term called hyper learning, that I love to say that you can really hyper learn any subject in about 60 days. And if you do that, which means you focus everything with all the information on Google, YouTube, books, the websites, blogs, everything is out there. If you want to choose a subject, the information is there that you could learn it 100% for free, or buy a couple of books. Put in any subject on Amazon and 20, 50, 80 books will pop up right in a row. And so I bought like 8 YouTube books, 8 YouTube marketing books, because I like books. I'm still kind of a book person, a little bit of that old school, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny. So from there, the authors of those books were the ones that got me to go to their channels. A big one was YouTube Secrets, Benji Travis and Sean Cannell. And that book really kind of set things off for me. It really got me extremely curious, because I started to understand the platform from a producer versus a consumer side. And so that's what really triggered that whole process. And then Benji mentioned in there just one little paragraph in that book that he started a real estate channel in 2009. And he went from doing 10 deals a year and almost getting out of the business because he was broke, to doing over 100 deals the next year because of his YouTube channel in 2009. Wow. That's a big deal. So that's what really got me intrigued and interested. And so I thought, okay, maybe maybe YouTube is the platform. And then once I really started understanding it's a search engine, then I thought, the other issue is that I'm not a great real estate agent. I was a brand new real estate agent. So, making TikTok videos or something where I'm explaining things. I mean, I could read about a VA loan or an FHA loan and regurgitate that information, but I hadn't done it. Yeah. I hadn't completed a transaction yet. So I also had a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, okay, I mean, I'm a good salesperson, but I do have to believe 100% in what I'm selling. So I could read stuff and regurgitate it, but that didn't seem right. So what I did was I realized I know Dallas, though. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I've lived there for 20 plus years. I know the neighborhoods and the suburbs. And so as I started to dig in and find out that YouTube was more of a search engine, then it made sense that I found that people are searching neighborhoods and suburbs and areas. And it's like, okay, well, if I can educate people on the areas versus I'm such a great real estate agent, which I wasn't, then maybe that would work out. So that's really kind of how the whole journey started. There was just through research and development, really. And I didn't watch Tiger King over the summer of 2020. So I was in a different mindset because my world had just came to a screeching halt. My financial services business I'd been building for the last 5 years, it was going great. 2019 was my best year. 2020, the first quarter was I was outpacing 2019 by 40%. Wow. And then literally like that, the world shuts down. So I was like, okay, what's the next step? And so I had to do some serious soul searching and really dig in and realize that you have to understand these platforms from the producer side versus the consumer side. And if you treat YouTube like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. If you treat it like a business, it'll pay you like a business. And that's really the case on any platform.
I love that. I love it. Like you said a lot, and so I'm going to touch on some of those things, right? But one thing that you keep bringing up is the consumer versus the producer side of this. And I think that's where people make their mistake, right? Because most people come in as the consumer, right? Where they're intaking all of this content. And a lot of times they're unconscious to what's actually happening to them. Like, I'm making you my supporter without you even knowing it. You're just enjoying the content, right? And so, you talked about, kind of being from an older generation before social media actually plays its part. And I feel the same way. Like, I'm 35 years old and I got in, that Facebook era. I remember MySpace, but MySpace I wasn't really big into. And that Facebook era when it was just like college students. We were sneaking emails in on that platform to kind of be involved with the college students. And I can kind of remember at that point, I was like, oh, okay, getting followers is kind of cool, right? Like, people are paying attention to like how many people are following you. Then I was like, I don't care about that. I'm not doing that, right? And so I kind of fell off. I was like, I'm not even about to do any of this kind of game of popularity. I already had my friends. I already was who I was at my high school, so I didn't care anymore. And then as I was in college is when I realized, the individuals that stuck to like making content were having all of these connections out of college. Yep. And I was like, all these relationships were built online, and I didn't have a lot of those. I had them through sports, but I didn't have them through like the online community that was doing other things. And so when it was time to kind of look for new opportunities or, get the job that you're looking for, it was a little bit more difficult. And so that's when my mind shifted. I was like, okay, you have to actually be active on these platforms in order to make these connections. So I think to that, though, really what is really good to state is that it's never too late to kind of partake in this, in these platforms, because like you said, you were, trying to vibe for a few minutes while you were in the military, trying to figure out when can I, get on here just to check some statuses, right? Yep. And so that speaks to how powerful the tool is, right? Because I know you had way more important things to do when you were doing that. And so I guess I want to pose the question to you again. What advice would you give to an older, maybe real estate agent or, someone who's in a type of field like that? Because I got my own opinion on real estate agents. Right? I've worked with a few from, basic markets to luxury market agents. And it's like, they never really seem to get ahead, right? Like especially when it comes to the finance side of things, right? Yep. It's like they're always really trying to work really hard to kind of almost make up for what they didn't get the last month. That's what it always felt like to me. And I was like, oh man, like I just want my retainer fee, right? Like I got to wait till next month to get the retainer fee. I thought you were selling $1 million homes, or I thought you were selling, 6 or 7 homes a month, but it's not really like that. So a lot of it is the image not necessarily the result.
Yeah.
And then I learned too, like it's like the 1% that are really doing really good, and that's the individuals that you want to try to do business with. But I also think what is good about that, like especially the agent side of real estate, is that the grind, man, like it shows you, like if you don't grind, you just don't get it.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of times what is mistaken is that if they would put that same effort into what they're doing in their marketing, they would be successful. They would find more opportunity, more deals. And so what would you say to a older individual that may be in those shoes right now, like today's social media? Like you obviously been doing it for a little while, so things are different. What's the first platform they should go on?
YouTube.
I love it.
I mean, everything you said is exactly true. The old joke is that you'll never go to a real estate agent's retirement party.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't
true.
happen. Yeah. Why? Because they're actively prospecting. And that's where we, coined the phrase passive prospecting, which we have the book out on that as well. And that's the whole point. That's what I realized through this process. That's the other reason why I had to start over at 41, is because I was always the best salesperson. I wasn't the best marketer. And I also wasn't the best leveraged of my time either. And so those were some of the other questions I asked myself during the summer of 2020, which is what went wrong? Why am I at this age, this far in the game, always an amazing salesperson, but I had all these, when I got deployed, that shut down my life at that time. I came back from Iraq actually with a very bad digestive disease, and that took me out about 8 years later. And at that time, that cut me out of my job at that time as well. Yeah. And then now this happened, a pandemic. So I started looking at these outside forces took me out of the picture, and my business stopped. That's a problem. So if you can't remove yourself and your business doesn't keep working, then you've got a major problem. You'll never retire. You'll never be. You'll always be running month to month, paycheck to paycheck. And so as I started to create YouTube videos, what I realized was that the number one thing that people tell me they don't do YouTube is because it takes time. And YouTube doesn't take time, it makes you time. Yeah. And not only does it make you time, it compounds your time.
That's good.
So the thing is I started to look at these back in analytics, and I'm looking at watch hours, and I'm going, wait a second. I started to realize I am getting a direct return of my investment of time. So somebody says, well, I don't have 30 minutes to make a video. All right. That's what they're telling me. And I say, okay, but if I offered you 12,000 hours back with your family, your friends, your relatives to go on vacation just for 30 minutes, would you make that trade? Yeah. Okay. Well, look at one of our videos. It took me 30 minutes to make. It's got 12,000 hours of watch time. First of all, that's like a 11,995 profit on my time,
right.
Just from a profit standpoint. Yeah. But if you start to divide 24 hours in a day into that 12,000 hours, that's like 1.35 years. So that 30-minute investment gave me 1.35 years worth of prospecting back.
30 minutes.
That's passive prospecting, right? And so we all love the idea of compound interest. It's supposed to be one of the eighth wonder of the world, right? Compound interest. Well, what if you could compound your time? That's what you're doing through video, especially on YouTube, because one little investment of your time, now not only can you, as soon as you invest 30 minutes and that video's been watched 31 minutes, you've made a 1 minute profit of your time. So immediately you're likely to make a profit. Now, once it starts compounding into hours and hours, and then you can't even turn it off. And imagine if you make a second video and a third video and a fourth video. If you've ever said, I just wish there was more of me.
Yeah.
Well, make a video.
Make a video.
And then guess what? You got exactly you doing what you have to do. That's why we've been able to scale so quickly in the last 2.5 years. We've done 4.3 million in real estate commissions. Nice. And I got out of production after one house. I haven't even opened a door or showed a home. I haven't even written a contract. Now that's mainly because Travis took over that side of the business. Yeah. But guess what? He hasn't had to make a video.
Right.
He's not required. That's not in his job description, you could say, with our company. But we wouldn't be here today. Like right now, this is why agents don't go on vacation, or they're not. Actually, business owners in general. Business owners in general get accused of not being present with their family, right? Whether it's nights, weekends, or on vacation. Why? Because they're usually thinking about the business, because it's not operating on its own. It's not lead generating on its own. Warren Buffett says you'll never be rich unless you can make money in your sleep. Well, if your business if you can't lead generate in your sleep, you don't have a business, you have a job. So if your lead generation is directly tied to you, that's a problem, and you have a job. You don't have a business. So as soon as you can outsource that, whether that's to a team member, or the easiest way to do that for really the least amount of money is to do it through video. You're outsourcing your prospecting through video. So you make that initial investment on that side of it. It goes to work for you. It gives you, you make a profit on your time. It gives you a compound. But then that's why we've been able to do the business, is because my prospecting is not dependent upon me.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, you talked about that 30 minutes, and this is what I always tell people. It's like that 30 minutes will turn into those watch hours no matter what, especially for YouTube, right? Like, just make it and let it sit. It's going to happen for you, right? The people are going to start to view the video. And so what I always find interesting for people when they hesitate for YouTube specifically, because they believe it takes more time, is that you're concerned about the time without being concerned about whether or not you're wasting that 30 minutes doing something else.
Yeah.
Right? Because I can tell you right now, there's that 30-minute lunch you can take. All you got to do is set up a camera, and you can talk while you eat if you want to, right? Like, it's a no holds bar with how you create the content. It's just taking the time to really get it out. And so, like, and I can tell you, like, anybody that's listening, Levi walks. He walks what he's talking, because one of our consultations that we did on one of our calls, this may be a month and a half, 2 months ago. I go, make your videos longer, and he goes, what do you mean? Why? And so I explained to him the whole strategy behind why you want to make them longer right now for YouTube. And I was like, if you're doing 30-minute videos, try to get to that hour. Right, to somebody else, and you were the only one, like, in the program that didn't give me pushback on longer content, right? Like, everybody else is like, I don't know where I'm
that's
going to get the time.
That's why I'm in the program. That's why I'm in the program.
Yeah, right. But they're like, where am I going to get the time to do that? I don't have time to sit down with people for an hour and do a podcast, or 2 hours and do a podcast. I got all this stuff to do in my business. And in my mind, I'm like, you're never going to get out of that. You're never going to get out of that because of the way your mind is. Like, you're working backwards rather than reverse engineering and really going, moving in a forward direction. You was like, why? All right, let's do it. All right. And then you started to think of creative ways to make the videos that you were already going to film longer. Right. And that's part of that process. That's part of being creative with your process and your systems, so that you can scale, long term. Tell me more about your process. How do you script? How do you, how do you go about creating the content that you're making on YouTube?
Well, and just to double back on what you said, people are always most likely looking at today's cost versus tomorrow's value.
Yep.
And whether you're spending money or spending your time, if you look at today's cost, it's going to be very hard to see tomorrow's value. That's why people don't want to invest in marketing, because they're not looking at the return. They're looking at what they're spending. I don't want to make a video because I'm looking at the time it takes me now versus the time it's going to return me in the future. So you got to shift your mindset on that, and always be asking yourself, it's just like attending a conference. Yeah. Like, do I want to pay $1,000 for a ticket, a flight, and a hotel? No. Not really, but I know the return. Now, can I directly measure that in a monetary return? Probably not, or at least not immediately, but I can point back to very specific relationships, business deals, things that happened because we were at a conference, and meeting somebody. So, like, our whole relationship, it's because we're out here, we're out here meeting people. We wouldn't have this relationship we have if we didn't go to your conference. We didn't go to WealthCon and get down all these rabbit holes with you guys, and coming here and upgrading and paying VIP tickets. That's where we saw Gary Sharper Gary Harper. Of Sharper Solutions. Yep. First time I saw him speak was at a VIP day here, and it was exactly what we were missing in our business. Yeah. So that return to us, even though, of course, he cost us more money to pay him. But the return coming back on that was huge. So the ticket that we bought to come here, fly here and everything, just that one introduction of that one person was the operational aspect that we were missing in our business. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are that same way, because they usually don't have that operational side dialed in. Yeah. They're all blow and go and, visionaries, and then leave all the dust in the wake. So you have to get that stuff. But
I always use that analogy where you're like a freshman playing on varsity. I always say that because that's exactly what it is. By the time people are like those individuals that don't want to invest in themselves just yet, and they're kind of just making the mistakes as they're going, right? And then they're learning and they're having to fall and then get up again and do it all over again. By the time they get to where you're at today, right, you've been far excelled them because you've been playing against the competition already. Yep. You've been playing at an elite level already. And so it's just important for people to know that, right? Like I just got back from a 10-day trip. I went Houston, I went Atlanta, and I went to Chicago. Atlanta, I got a chance to talk to some individuals. There were people that were hosting the event that I wanted to connect with. My goal was to connect with them, share some of the information that I have, some of the experience that I have, and hopefully next year I'll be on that stage. Right? That's my goal. I accomplished that goal. I had to have that conversation. We exchanged those phone numbers. We're texting back and forth. But my goal was really to go, not to attend the event to gain a bunch of knowledge, because it was an intermediate level. Like I had knew most of the information. I had knew that. But I knew the speakers that were going to be there and that they were going to be super useful to the acceleration of my path. And that's what it was about. It cost me, right? Yeah. I had to pay to go there. We had to get the ticket. We had to get the hotel. We had to get the flights. But that I don't get anything up front from that. Right? But hopefully next year, when I have the opportunity to get on the stage and I can actually talk about a product that I have and I can offer up them Wealthy Creator, Pineda Media, or whatever the product is at the time, when I have that opportunity, then I get to see that return. And I get to see where the value is in what I just invested in a year ago. And so it's just 100% true, right? Like play up to the competition. Don't play down to, your limiting beliefs or play down to your experience. Play up to other people's experiences, right? And I'm just, Ryan Pineda has shown the way, really, right? Yeah. Like I get to sit up under him and really learn those things, right? Like, and those connections, like these events, I've connected with so many different people, right? And so it's been a pleasure to kind of do that. But yeah,
well, look at Omar, right? Omar is a good example, I think, of someone who's been doing the work, doing the reps, showing up, and doing that really for another company. Mm-hmm. And now launched his own podcast studio, program, coaching. Yeah. And I think I saw a reel the other day, he's talking about he had, immediate audience, right? Yep. Immediate clients, because he's been building that up. Even if it was with somebody else as the main focal point, or the company as this main focal point, that's okay. Because as long as you're out there working with people, providing value, when you're ready to launch your own thing, it's time to go. Yeah. And last year, we went to 25 conferences last year.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And we spent, if you look at our P&L, it was about $130,000 last year on travel, tickets, everything else. And that was just something that we were willing. And I knew that because I knew the more conferences we were going to. That's why we've also developed a very strong brand in the real estate space so quickly, is because people are seeing us over and over, whether we're speaking or not. Mm-hmm. Now, we've gotten a lot of opportunities to speak, which is great. And that accelerates your brand even more. But most of those speaking opportunities came from showing up at these conferences over and over and over again, because you see the same people, the right people, the important people. Yep. And they're like, man, you're at every conference. You're at every conference. Well, guess who's at every conference? Corporate staff, influencers, the people that matter, really. And so those opportunities keep coming up and we keep getting invited. I was just at the gym this morning at the Aria. We're staying at the Aria Hotel. And I saw for the brokerage we're with, the president of global operations for the company. And what's funny is that we're good friends. Why? Because over the last 2 years, he's always in the gym whenever I am at 5 a.m. at the hotel. Instead of staying up all night partying with everybody at the hotel bar, I go to the hotel gym as soon as it opens up, and we run into each other. I didn't even know he was coming, but we call each other conference gym buddies. Wow. But he's been very responsible. He's what helped introduce us to get our coaching platform as a preferred partner with the EXP brokerage, which just doesn't happen. And so we're the only approved YouTube program for real estate agents for EXP, and they have 90,000 agents. Wow. Yeah. So, and that came from going to conferences, but also going to the gym and running into the right guy over and over again. And so now those opportunities spring up.
Wow. No, that's incredible. And I could say it, like we host these events so many times a year that it's like, like getting in these rooms. And I used to say that when I was younger too, because playing basketball, it was never how good you were. It was about who you know, right? And so how you can get connected with the college coaches, with the professional agents, right? And so I was always like, if you just let me get in the room, I'll make sure that I perform well enough to catch somebody's attention, or I'll make sure that I do what I need to do to connect the dots. And so I love that you're saying that, right? And I think people really need to focus in on your upfront investment to what is going to kind of carry out later as, your value. And so it's amazing to see. But I want to go back to, because I want to give the creators watching, really a lot of value on the process, right? Like I've actually got a chance to kind of talk with you plenty of times about your process and how you create the content. right? And your YouTube channel, you do it, right? Like you're doing YouTube at an elite level. And so talk about how you plan, prepare, and actually film your content.
Yeah, I would say it has been a lot more off the cuff than what I would do is I would take topics. I look at research topics because I found that a lot of our stuff is research driven. Mm-hmm. Now, after talking to you, you're going to tell me otherwise and tell me I need to be more in browse, which actually our last couple of videos are picking up big time in browse.
We coming for it.
But the thing is that I'm looking for intentional people. Mm-hmm. So there's, most people conduct marketing through interruption marketing, which is cold calling, door knocking, postcards, flyers, billboards, TV commercials. Mm-hmm. That's interrupting what people are doing. That's why you have to market so many times or retarget, or on Facebook you have custom audiences and lookalike audiences and all these things to target people, to hit them over the head again and again and again until they finally buy from you. Where intention marketing, people become intentional about buying or selling real estate. Something happens in their life that they say, it's time to move. It's time to buy a house. It's time to sell our house. So when that happens, they become intentional. If they start searching, then they're searching specific things. And the cool thing is YouTube and Google tells us what they're searching.
Right.
So that information is out there. So whatever your business is, that's the point of passive prospecting as well. It's a whole chapter in our book is content research and creation. So to go out there and research first and say, okay, if I create a video that I want to make, I have no idea what the audience level is. I have no idea the interest level. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of creators come into the space too, and it takes them years and years and years to gain traction, if any, is because they do what they want to do, which nothing wrong with that, but that's probably a longer path as to where if there's people that are searching very specific topics, especially in your business, then you can find out what that is and make those videos first. Rank them, but you can find the search volume. Yeah. And so that's creating the content that people are already looking for, that are intentional, and putting it in front of them. That's going to give you a much quicker start to getting found sooner rather than later, which is what I did. I started searching which suburbs. I looked at all the suburbs of Dallas, Texas, what's the most searched. And then I started looking at neighborhoods, most searched, topics of Dallas, when you're making a move in Dallas or moving to or moving from. So I ranked all those. So that's the whole macro level research that I would do. Then I would look at, okay, let's say a suburb of Dallas is Frisco, Texas. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, how many videos can I make about Frisco, Texas? Well, pros and cons, very simple. A map video, a neighborhood tour, top neighborhoods. So right there I've got 4 videos. And now if I've got 10 neighborhoods, guess what? I've got 40 videos that I can do right there. Yeah. Because I've figured out, I've looked at everything from the macro, and that you start to work down, you reverse engineer it. And so now I'm going to say, okay, maybe I could do cost of living as well. And I could do house price, all these types of things. So really, I have probably 20 to 30 topics per suburb. And if I've got 10, 15, 20 suburbs, it's game over. You got a year's worth of content. Right. And then I just need to make it. So pros and cons, I've never scripted anything. It's always been, now I did script the intro in the beginning. I had this intro and call to action that was really very repetitive. Started to back away a little bit from that this day and age, but I'm still a little torn on that. So we'll have to talk about that some other time. But the, say a pros and cons of Frisco, I know my areas. And this is what I always encourage to entrepreneurs as well, especially real estate agents. I'm like, look, you know your area. So to me, it's a lot of work. If you try to write out a whole video script, you've got to write that whole thing out. Yeah. First of all, to me, that's way longer than saying, okay, I've got some bullet points. I should be able to ask you, if I came to your town and you're going to show me around town, or tell me about your business, I should be able to ask you very specific things, and you should be able to talk for 2 to 3 minutes. Right. So if let's say pros and cons, I say, okay, I want to list out 5 good things and 5 bad things about Dallas, Texas. Well, that's it. I just need the bullet points, whether it's traffic, weather, construction, taxes, restrictions. Okay, those are my 5 topics. Yeah. Well, is that good or bad? Okay. Well, if you ask me about taxes, property taxes, or, anything else in there, business taxes or the weather, I should be able to talk for 2 to 3 minutes. And you do that in increments of 2 to 3 minutes. So that's another thing is people look at a 20-minute video and they say, well, I can never talk for 20 minutes. Well, you're not. You're talking for maybe increments of 2 to 3 minutes, starting and stopping. The editing makes the magic. Yep. Everything seams together in the end. So if you can talk for 2 to 3 minutes, make sure you start your point talking point with a good starting point and ending with a good starting point. That way it makes it easier for the editor to chop. And I would have notes right beside me. Oh, here's my pro. I'm going to talk about the weather. And I would start out and say, so the weather in Dallas sucks. It's very extreme. It's either super hot or it could get really cold. And then I could ramble for 2 to 3 minutes.
Right.
And then I stop. And that's it.
You check the notes?
Yeah, I look at my notes and I say, okay, traffic.
Yeah.
Well, traffic in Dallas sucks. Right. You're always everything's under construction. And I just talk for 2 or 3 minutes and then I stop and then I go through there. And what happens is if you got 5 topics for 3 minutes each, that's 15-minute video. Well, now you do that on the pro side. You do that on the con side. Now you've got a 30-minute video. And it's like you just made a 30-minute video talking for 2 to 3 minute increments. Yep. And this is what I tell, especially because I have a lot of conversations with real estate agents, is I'll go, if I came to your town right now to buy a house and you took me around and I started asking you questions, you tell me, right? You don't get a redo. You don't get to script that. Yeah. You don't walk in and say, oh, let me check my script. I'm like, so why do you need a script? You just really need the reminder, the bullet point, something to kind of refresh your memory and trigger. Now, the problem is that you're by yourself, recording this, looking into a camera. So the other thing is that a lot of people always ask about fear of the camera. For me, I never had a fear of the camera. What I did get used to was having a conversation with an object. I was so used to belly sales, looking at facial expressions, nods, interruptions, questions, body movement, reading people, and so that's what I've always done. So whenever you sit there and you just stare at a camera and you have to have a discussion, it's weird. Yeah. It's awkward in the beginning. Yeah. But what isn't awkward in the beginning anytime you start something new?
I tell everybody that I first start with on their first initial call, I tell them straight up, I said, the same feeling that you're getting, looking into that lens is the same feeling that everybody had, right? I was like, you're looking at a finished product when you see a Ryan Pineda video, right? You're looking at 3,000 videos a year, 3 years straight of making content, right? Like that's a finished product right now, right? Like, and now he's just on autopilot and on repeat. But when you buy a new car, you see the finished product. What that car looked like before the paint job, you would hate it, right? What that car looked like before it was structured and put together, you wouldn't want anything to do with it. And so don't pay attention to the finished product, right? Like you're working to get to your finished product. But looking into that lens is awkward no matter what. No matter who you are, there's nobody that did it and was like, oh, that was great. Right? Like, no, everybody starts there. And so you got to just kind of know that going into it too, right? Like, this is going to feel weird. This is the first day of school, right? Like, it's going to feel weird. I don't know anybody. I'm not sure that I'm the smart one in the class anymore, right? Like, I don't want to say the wrong answer. It's okay, right? Like, it's okay. I dropped my son off first day of school today, and I looked at him before he walked in. I said, you're the leader, and it's okay to make mistakes, but you're going to do great, and your teacher loves you. Go be great, right? Like, those were just my words to him. Like, understand that you don't have to follow what other people are doing. Yeah. You lead, but you also be confident enough to make the mistake, right? Like, you're not in any trouble if you say the wrong answer. In fact, that's going to be the learning moment for you, right? Like, you learn more making the mistake than you do actually probably trying to get every answer correct. And so it was like having that conversation. I'm doing the same thing with adult entrepreneurs that are making money on their business. I'm like, like you made mistakes in business before, right? Yep. Like you lost some money somewhere. I know you did, right? And so, but that's okay. You bounce back, right? You did it again, and you just stay, consistently doing it. And so, I love that about, you jumping into YouTube specifically, right? Because it's a little easier to do those 30-second videos. Because I could read line by line on a 30-second video. Nobody's gonna know to edit, or I could just speak for 30 seconds and be okay. The YouTube, the longer version, people need to hear that because they need to understand that you don't have to go straight through for 30 minutes straight, on information that you know or may not know, right? And I always tell people to talk about what you know. You're only an authority in what you know. You're not really truly an authority in stuff that you're researching and then regurgitating, right? Like, and so it's important to just, be an expert at whatever it is and talk about that, right? Like, and it's okay.
But
right?
it is one of the fastest ways to learn is to teach something, right?
Yeah.
And what's funny is that a lot of feedback I get from agents that go through our programs, they say, you know what, I never realized how much this is helping me understand my neighborhoods and areas better. Yeah. Because they do, if you do a little bit of research beforehand, especially on you're going to do a neighborhood, why not? I mean, if you want to work that area and you've never really spent time in there, and that's hard to do sometimes, especially if you live in another area. Well, you read a couple of blogs, maybe watch a couple of other videos. There's probably some travel guide or somebody's done a YouTube video on this area or that. Yeah.
If you're in Dallas, Levi's already done it. So you just go to his YouTube channel and give you everything you need.
We get that all the time. Yeah. People will be like, I just went to your channel and copied everything.
Yeah. You're doing it for
It's public, sure. Yeah. So go for it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. But that process is great. Like, you were just like, I am going to research, and then I am going to present in a way that is specific to an audience, right? And so talk a little bit nowadays, because you hear both sides of this. You should be niche or you should be broad and do a little niche here and there. Like, people are all over the place with this. What are your thoughts? Because you are, like, your channels are like really niche.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, you hit a lot of search, right? That's the majority of probably what you've grown so far. And, I have my own thing, we're working on it, and you talked a little bit about it, but tell me, for somebody that may be an agent and they may be doing a little content here and there, but not necessarily all in just yet, what do you think they should do? How should they start?
Yeah, I mean, I think hyperlocal is very important. I don't know any other real estate channels, or at least real estate agent channels, doing the volume we're doing. So I mentioned earlier, 2.5 years, 4.3 million in commissions. So I find channels that are broad, that do national real estate news, especially right now, that are there. There are a lot of crazy things in the market. Yeah. So anything negative definitely draws eyeballs, right? And I know agents that their business model is not to work with clients, but to collect referrals. So the thing about in real estate, if I give you a client, you can, I ask for a referral. Well, usually that's 25%. Well, if that's a $10,000 commission on that property, I can make $2,500 just from referring you somebody. So I know agents that have a national audience. They don't show homes in their local market, so they talk about general, broad-based real estate. But they get referrals. But also, they might be making a 1, 2, 3, 400,000 a year at the most that I've ever heard. Maybe 300 a K a year at the most, which is great for that person. I want to do more than that, right. And I'm kind of like a super affiliate for selling homes. This is the way you look at it, because I don't go out and show homes. I don't open doors, but I'm focused so much on the local market that we get $1 million client. I mean, that could be a 30K commission. That's a huge affiliate commission, right? Yeah. For me making a video, I'm not answering the phone calls. I'm not talking to the clients. None of that. So we do a client appreciation event twice a year, and that's where I talk to most of the clients. And I'll tell them, hey, we're holding this event. You want to come over? And then most of the times when they come in there, they're like, hey, it's nice to finally meet you. So they're coming because of the value of the videos, not necessarily just to work with me personally. Right. So because I'm hyper niched into Dallas real estate, there's a lot more opportunity to turn over real estate transactions. But now I'm leveraging that and moving into multifamily. Now that's something I do see where the channel is going to progress to. And because investment is a much broader audience. And you could definitely turn over some significant income. As a real estate agent, I think the more niche you go, you're probably going to make more money. But it also depends on how you want to build that out. So you have something like investment, multifamily. Like right now, we're already collecting information. Investors are submitting, forms for us. So now we're starting to build a list. Nice. Those types of things. I've invested in my first 2 opportunities as well. So that's the other thing, is that I knew even within last year, I realized I don't want to be stuck in real estate transactions. It's time, we got to, broaden ourselves out. But is that right for the channel? Well, I've been learning about multifamily for the last year. and that's mainly, especially coming to these conferences and you hear people talking about it. It's like, that's what opens up your mind. I'm like, yep, that's the direction we need to go for the long game.
I'm sorry. Do you believe that's the case for every agent? Like they should be looking to head more into the investment?
Yeah, if they want passive income and generational wealth and they don't want to be doing transactions until they're 85 years old. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Why not? Especially, after I paid my taxes last year, I was like, we got to have way more, way more to offset that. So, the tax benefits that come with that. But, I can see myself already within 3 to 5 years having a significant portfolio. I've been writing this whole year. I write out daily goals, and I write usually the same ones over and over and over again every day until I achieve them. And then I cross it off the list and I put a different goal on there.
Nice. I love that.
Well, one of my goals is I invest in 500 doors this year in 2023. I say it that way. I say I invest in 500 doors in 2023. So I'm making it sound like I've already done that. And so at the beginning of the year, I had no idea how that was going to happen. But I just have been writing that out. I just closed on the first 63 unit project, and now we're about to close on 320. So just like that, within 30 days. Now this is, if we look at, we're in August, so month 8 of the year. So I wrote out that goal practically every day for 8 months, not knowing how it was going to happen. And within a 30-day time period, I'm going to be almost at 400 units. Wow. So now that tells me I may be able to double that by the end of the year. Now that's what I'm thinking. I could double that. Yeah. So it's also setting those types of, but I also started my education process last year. So that's the type of person I am as well. I'm going to do a little research first, not, analysis paralysis, but research to help me understand so I don't, step in a hole right off the bat. It's like, let me do a little research and understand. And I knew the opportunities would come. Plus, because I'm in the right rooms, I'm meeting the right people, and that's what it all came from. And the people I'm working on these deals came from attending a Brad Sumrock conference last year, in my first multifamily conference.
Another conference, huh?
That I attended, yep. Wow. And I was there, and I was just a fly on the wall. But I met these people, and here it is a year later that it's come full circle, and now I'm doing some investments with them. And you know what they're excited about? They're excited about YouTube because they've got zero marketing presence. They don't really and so now they're like, oh, now they see how they can leverage me, and they want to get me included on more deals because that's the piece they're missing in their business. They got the numbers, the acquisition, the deal finding, everything else. They just don't know how. I'm like, oh, I got that part.
Yeah, and if nothing else, I hope you all are paying attention, because if nothing else, leveraging your influence works in every case. Right, like the deals come in. Right, I can't tell you how many deals Ryan gets offered.
Yeah,
right, because I get stuff into the media inquiries about deals that they have available for that he may be interested in, and so it's the work that you're putting in up front is allowing for everything else to work for you on the back end. And I even say that about the platform, especially YouTube, right? And this is going back to our conversation about, search and browse. The reason why I want you to be more browse and I want the platform working for you now. Yeah. Right? You've put in your time and your work in for the platform, right? And they've gained a lot from that, believe me. All right. Now it's time for the platform to start pushing you out and working for you. And so you're going to start seeing that, doing the different strategies and tips. But going back to what you said, it is an amazing thing when you see somebody gain an opportunity leveraging just what they do on their platform. Yeah. And so I love to hear it. Congratulations on those deals. But yeah, you probably will double what your goal was by the end of the year at that rate, at the rate you're going. And so it's amazing to hear that from you. And I think you all have heard numbers from him now, from what he's done in 2 years. Was it 4.3 you said? Yeah. To now he's about to close on his own, his personal investments. And so it's just, again, if you're not doing it currently, he's telling you, I started researching a year ago, or I started YouTube 2 years ago. He's telling you what he's doing, right? This is a play for anybody that is willing to really commit to it and stay consistent. And so that's amazing. Offer me some more insight on how important it is to grow your personal brand, right? Because you've had companies, and even YouTube channels have been a different name, but Levi, the brand itself, right? And passive prospecting, we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But tell me how important it is for your influence to continue to grow.
Yeah, I don't think I think it's very important. I don't think I'm really promoting Levi Lascsak as a brand right now. I mean, people know me, of course, but really passive prospecting is the brand we're pushing forward. And I'm not concerned about my own personal brand, so to speak, at this moment, because I think that will come with time. What I noticed, the most successful people I see right now, Ryan Pineda, Alex Hermosi, these guys built businesses and brands in the background. And so whenever they came onto social, they had a lot of business credibility backing them up. So I think that's what I'm kind of doing opposite of what they did, because we started the business and got on social right from the very beginning. And so you're seeing the growth in that journey. And I'm still learning. I mean, I'm still learning every single day. And so therefore, on the personal side, I don't have Levi Lascsak. Well, I do have a Levi Lascsak YouTube channel, but there's no videos there, except for the ones I made on my health journey from 10 years ago, which is funny. But yeah, I'll resurrect that at some point. Now, I do have, my Instagram is the personal brand. I do get some recognition through that, and going to these conferences and things, it's very important. I mean, really, all of that is my relationships is driving a lot of this in the background, and so, and people, it's the consistency. And that's really what, to me, that's branding, it's consistency. It's the one trait I see across the most successful people is just staying consistent on whatever it is you're doing, and, playing the extremely long game. They call that the infinite game, right? Simon Sinek calls it the infinite game. That was something that just made me realize, okay, that's what I've been playing for a long time. But I think it's very important, but building your brand out as well, we want to do that, and it's going to make it easier to open up new brands on top of that down the road. So I would say focus on that, just depending on where you're at. If you've been building a business, you come out and you've had that success, you start talking about that, sharing it, you're going to probably find yourself in a situation like, Ryan Pineda and, these other guys that can, because I don't have a million followers on social just yet, So it's super niche. So and I know that I think that played a lot, because he was like coming on social, hey, I've already flipped 1,000 homes and five, whatever the numbers were, and that helps out. And so we're building that journey, but I think it's very important to be present.
Yeah, I mean, you're making now, like currently, you're going to make the same shift that Ryan had to make too. And one thing that we had to do 2 years ago was we had to figure out how to get him from just being known as a house flipper and more into the entrepreneur space. Because what we started to see was the plateau of views, the plateau of following on just flips, right? So you start seeing us, I mean, people that have been following Ryan Pineda or going back and even looking at some of his old YouTube stuff, what we were doing was like highlighting other people's businesses that were related to flipping and doing other things outside of his niche so that we could start to gain a larger audience and continue to grow the following. Because, again, we saw the plateau, right? Like, it's like, how many people are flipping houses?
So can I speak to that real quick?
Go for it.
Okay, so that's the whole concept behind passive prospecting.
Yeah.
Whenever I've always wanted to write a book. That's been a big goal of mine, I think, since probably a teenager. I always thought that would be cool. I just never knew, okay, how would I write a book or what would I write a book about? And initially, when I started to come up, through that process, I was just going to call the book YouTube for Real Estate, because I was thinking like search terms. I'm like, well, if anybody ever gets on Amazon and searches, is there a book about YouTube for real estate? Right. My book, YouTube for Real Estate, would pop up. Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. But then I was talking with Benji Travis, and he was like, hey, man, don't worry about the book. He said, write the book. The name will come. And also, I was doing all this traveling. I was in an airport bookshelf, and I was sitting there in the airport bookshelf, and I realized, you know what? YouTube for Real Estate will never be in the airport bookshelf. Yeah. It's way too niched. Now, that could be a good thing for like that part of that business, but I thought, you know what? I don't want to be talking to real estate agents forever. And that's where I started to understand, wait, this concept is much bigger than just real estate agents. This affects all entrepreneurs, what we're talking about. And I thought about Ryan Serhant's book, Sell It Like Serhant. like, okay, he's a real estate agent, but that's really kind of a sales book. So all these things, all these experiences, all these interactions, all these things that I've come across are just feeding into my mind, playing over. And I said, and I don't even remember exactly where passive prospecting came from.
I was going to ask you that next.
Well, I wish I would have documented that a little bit better, but I think it just hit me one day, and I was like, that's what these videos are doing. They're passively prospecting for me. I think I was listening to someone talk about passive income, and the funny thing about passive income is it takes a lot of work to get there.
Right.
And so I was thinking about that and said, passive prospecting, you know what, that's a concept. And so that's what led, whenever I wrote the book, to write it to fit for all entrepreneurs, but my examples were real estate examples. I think about Grant Cardone too, right? He writes, he wrote a sales book, and right, maybe he did that through real estate but he's talking about the sales principles. Yeah. And so that's what passive prospecting became in the book. Was I said, I want to reach all entrepreneurs. Now we're still hyper focused on real estate agents right now. But that's where we want to expand the brand. So that was the vision for the future, is that this is a brand that can affect all entrepreneurs. Yeah. But we're going to hyper focus on real estate right now, get a lot of good results, a lot of good feedback, and then we're going to venture out from there. And that will open up. The same thing with investing on the channel.
Yep.
So even though we're focusing on Dallas neighborhoods right now to attract the retail transaction, I know there's much bigger opportunity in investments and multifamily and things like that. So we're going to start creating content around that. Awesome. And we won't abandon what we're doing on that side, but we have to add to that and attract everything in there. So I would highly recommend that you think about these concepts and think about who your audience is, the avatar, for where you want it to go, not necessarily today. And so that's what caused me to really kind of broaden that out. And right now we call it kind of passive prospecting for real estate agents, but or YouTube for real estate. But we know this can be passive prospecting for financial advisors, passive prospecting for plumbers.
There'll be that point where you make that transition to a broader audience, right? And it comes with results. Yeah. Right. And that was the thing, like you said, Ryan said it, he flipped 300 homes, 400 homes, and then now I can teach you other areas of real estate. Now I have the authority and the validity to do other things. And so even today, like, he's just an entrepreneur, finance creator, right? Like, and his full-time job is creating content. Right. And so it's like those transitions happen naturally through the time and through the success. So that's awesome, man. Like, I love it because I can see it. Right. Like, I know, like, you're about to start hitting stages. You're about to start creating, your portfolio and investing, and all these different things are going to happen for you that the transition is just going to make sense. And what's really, unique about your situation, that you already have a team that is doing things at an elite level that will be able to back you and help you. So a few more questions I just want to get to. Tell me about your hiring process. Like, how did you find your videographer, your partner? How does that work? Because that's always a question that we get from individuals that are just starting.
Yeah, friends and family. Yeah. No, I met Travis at a mutual friend's house one day. We just met, and then all of a sudden we connected a couple of months after that, and we just started talking and realizing we had a lot of similarities. Felt like it was a good fit. I knew, actually, getting into real estate, I didn't want to be a transactional real estate agent. I didn't really want to open doors and show homes. And I wanted to do something different. Find me 10 years ago, I would have been all about it. But now I realized I was the best salesperson. I was tired of being the best salesperson. I wanted to be the best marketer. So I wanted to shift, and I needed a salesperson that wanted to do the sales part, not necessarily the marketing part. So when you have that, I think when you have opposite strengths, then that's when you should start asking, but you're aligned on the same vision. That's when you should be asking yourself, should I have a partner in this venture? Gotcha. So that's what led me to the partnership. Our videographer Alex came from Travis because he worked with Alex back in the day, nice. Saw each other at events and conferences and these types of things. Wow. And so when we came to that point, it was Travis was like, I know somebody. We're like, cool, let's talk to him. So we talked to him, and he was it. Chrissy's now COO of our Passive Productions. That's our video editing agency that we offer. Yeah. And I found her on Fiverr like 5 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And she was so cheap. You know how you go on Fiverr and they put an American on the thumbnail, but then it's not an American when you try to do their services. Well, I saw her and I thought, and her services were cheap. That I thought, okay, this is clearly a scam.
Yeah.
We ended up touching base. And so she was working with me 5 years ago on and off as a contractor. And when we started really getting hot and heavy in this, I finally just asked her, I was like, hey, how do we buy you out of all your clients? Same thing. Alex was a freelance videographer, and I asked him, what's it going to take to get you on the payroll, and get rid of everybody else? And Chrissy's been absolutely critical to our business. Alex is, key player in our business. And from there, it's been a combination of networking events. And then if we really need a position, we go through Sharper. So Sharper Talent, Sharper Talent. Yep. We've hired some through them. I have another consulting company. This last round, so we need a new operations manager. I put out a post on our community tab on YouTube, and we got a Navy SEAL apply from there.
Wow.
And we got another Navy veteran, a commander, apply on there. So we got like 4 or 5 solid applications just from posting on the community tab of our YouTube channel. Because that was the other thing. It was like, hey, if we could ever recruit from our own community, those people are probably bought into our vision. Yep. They like our work. They know who we are or have a very good idea of who we are. So now we're probably about to hire, and actually our executive assistant, Travis's executive assistant, came from a post on our community tab on YouTube. So we've hired people just through that way, through our own community.
Yeah. So if they're looking to work with you, they need to get into that community, right? Yeah. They need to buy in. It's the same thing goes for us. Like, a lot of our team here in the building comes from the local church that we all go to. They come from, another business that have moved and transitioned to a position in a business here. So it's all like really relative, and really like you believe in what we're trying to do here. And that's what makes for a good team, right? Like, this is why you're seeing results, right? Because they care about it just as much as you do. So that's awesome. I love to see that. I'm not going to hold you too much longer. I always kind of try to end with, a few questions, just kind of little fun questions. Tell me about the worst time filming a video. Like, what was the time where you was like, I hated doing this video. I hated how it came out. I didn't like anything about it. It was the worst experience that I had, in the filming process. You have one?
Man, I just don't think it's that bad.
Yeah. What about a crazy story maybe? Like I've had conversations even with Brian Davila, who's over Wealthy Investor here, where he's like going to check on a house that had been an empty, and there's a guy in there holding a screwdriver to his neck, right? Like, what are some crazy things you may have seen or heard from in Dallas? I know Dallas ain't that peaceful. It can't be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going into abandoned homes and flip homes, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I play it mostly safe.
Yeah.
And I haven't really had anything too crazy. I do a lot of neighborhood tours. I mean, I've been stopped several times. Like, people are like, hey, I love your videos. And then they'll come over, and it's interesting. I'll get stopped at restaurants or places like that. Probably the worst part is I've had people come up and say, hey, I moved here because of your channel. And then I say, wait, you don't look familiar. Did you call us? And they're like, no.
They buy somebody else.
So that's what I'm saying. That's the funny thing I love to say about passive prospecting as well through YouTube is that it's a rejection free.
Yeah.
It's rejection free. I mean, a lot of people get out of sales because they can't handle rejection.
Right.
But I'm like, if people don't call you, you don't know who doesn't want to work with you until you meet them later on. So I've had at least 5 or 6 times that I've talked to people and they said, loved your channel. I moved to Dallas because of your channel. And then I was like, well, did you call us?
Yeah,
and they're like, no. It makes me feel real awkward.
That's so funny.
But other than that, it's, filming in a public place sometimes that could be a little awkward for some people. It is for me too as well. But, most of the time I just kind of look around and I look for a little open gap or something that I'll feel not as awkward and then just go for it, So otherwise it just hasn't been too crazy, I mean, it's just been steady and consistent, and I've been very fortunate in that.
That's great. All right. Anything else you want to leave the people with before we get out of here?
Yeah, it's never too late.
That's right. Get to it. Well, I thank you all for tuning in and really listening to Levi and myself here on the Wealthy Creator podcast. Levi, thank you again for coming and taking this time. We will link all of his socials, links to your book. All right, we'll have all that down in the comments and in the description. So please check him out, follow him, support him. He's a wealthy creator, so he's going to be doing this for a long time and really bringing true value to our community here. And again, thank you. Thanks for having me. You guys, peace out.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.